And good morning. You are listening to KXSF LP in San Francisco. This is Pamela Bush, and the show you're listening to is Queerly Drinking. We took a bit of a hiatus for a few weeks. I had the big event that I had been planning called Wine Fair, which is an event with women in the natural wine movement. So it's usually a live event, and this time around it was a 3-day event. And then after that, I needed to go and see my family in New York for a couple of weeks. So thanks to those who helped cover the show while in my absence. And I'm really happy to be back. And I'm back in time just for sort of when things with Pride are really starting to kick in. And as the show definitely has a queer bend, as you can certainly tell by the name, and it is Pride Month. We are going to have two couples today who make wine together. So we're going to start off at the first hour. We have with us Tara Gomez and Miria Taribó. And again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. I should have said it 10 times before I got on the radio, but I'm sure you will correct me. And they have Camins to Dreams. So it's a very interesting project down making wine in Santa Barbara County. So we're going to get our show started off. Can both of you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Good morning.
Just making sure that everyone can hear you. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask both of you to just tell me about yourselves and kind of your individual journeys before we get into the journeys that when you started your journey together.
Sure. So thank you for having us on this morning. My name is Tara Gomez, and my journey started at such an early age when I was actually 4 years old. It began with the love of science. I loved looking through a microscope and just looking at nature. My parents got me my first microscope set when I was 4 years old, and then from there it grew. So science was always a part of me growing up, and I just had this infatuation for science, and so from there my parents used to go wine tasting a lot as well. And back then when we were really young, it was just something that you could do back then, and we used to go on the wine tours. And for me it was just seeing the lab. That was the instant connection, and I think that was my first sign that was a direction I wanted to go to. So it was something that I knew early on, and by before high school, I remember talking about it and saying I always wanted to be a part of something related to science. So I stuck through it, graduated out of Fresno State, out of the Enology program. And it was with the financial support of my Chumash tribe. From the Sayanez Banda Chumash Indians. And it was with their support that I was able to go off to college and get my degree. So I worked at Fess Parker Winery here in Santa Barbara County. That was my first job, and moved up to J. Lore Paso Robles. Was there for about 10 years, did 2 harvests in Spain. And then I came back in 2010, which is when my Chumash tribe purchased the Camp 4 property from the late Fess Parker. So it's almost full circle coming back to my hometown. So I'm the winemaker for Kita Wines. I established that brand. And then in 2017, Mireia and I decided to launch our own brand under the Camins to Dreams label. So Mireia.
Yeah, and for me, I'm Mireia. I'm from Spain, and I was raised always around wine. Being from Spain, I think you have wine on the table mostly every day for lunch, breakfast, dinner. So I was always really interested in wine, and also pretty similar than Tara. My parents used to go wine tasting a lot. We actually had a really small vineyard at home that my great grandfather planted. And I remember when I was a kid going to pick up the grapes and food stomp them. And I thought always that it was really fun. And yeah, I would always like wine. I mean, it was just wine for drinking at home. It's not that my family is in the wine industry, but I was always around it. And then when it was time to go to college, I studied chemistry. I love science too. But I realized that I didn't want to be in a lab all day or in a classroom teaching students chemistry. So I needed to do something that was more like outdoors, more active, because I'm like a really active person. So I transferred to enology. I studied enology. And when I finished enology program, I got an internship at Jaylor Winery in Paso Robles here in California. So I came here for 4 months, and that's how I met Tara. That was back in 2006. And then after that, came back home. I got a position there in a winery as a winemaker, Castel d'Encus in the Pyrenees in Catalonia. And I invited Tara over to visit. That's how our friendship grew. And after that, our love. And yeah, from there, like after a few years back and forth, in 2014, I decided to move here. We got married, and I continued working in the wine industry, helping the winery. I was in Spain doing sales here, and then helping also Kita Wines with their sales in Santa Barbara County. And yeah, Tara and I, we always said we wanted to have our own label. So in 2017, we started Camins to Dreams.
Oh, so I want to ask both of you about some of the work that you do that do individually. So or have done. So first, if like with Kita Wines, can you tell me, Tara, like what that's about? Because I know it's pretty unique in a lot of ways in terms of California wine production. That's something that you're doing is with the Chumash tribe, I believe.
Correct. Yes. So we were recognized as the first Native American tribe and the first Native American winemaker. We're recognized by the state legislature of California as being the first of tribes to have this whole project run solely by our tribe. So that was a huge recognition. But yes, this project started in 2010. We're located here in the San Ynez Valley. And so Camp 4 Vineyard, it's a 256 acre vineyard planted to 20 different varieties, predominantly Rhônes and Bordeaux's. Yes, I'm working for my tribe, and Kita translates to our Valley Oak in our native Somali language. Yes, this project started in 2010, it's with their support, my Chumash tribe, that I was able to make wine for them and get this project going. Because when they purchased the property in 2010, it was a 1,400 acre parcel, but it was predominantly purchased. It was purchased for housing because we wanted to extend housing off the reservation. It just happened to be that the vineyard was also a part of it. So after some convincing to the tribe, I was able to get this project started because to me, it just made perfect sense. I mean, we're in wine country. We have a vineyard now, so why not get into the wine industry?
Wow. And how is the vineyard farmed?
So sustainable. We're working toward we follow sustainability practices. We have a lot of, there's so many trees out there for to serve as perch poles for the hawks. We have owl houses, we have bat houses. So we rely on a lot of the natural resources that are out there to really help control the rodents and the insects. And so, and then we've created a pumice to compost program where nothing gets wasted. All the material other than grape comes back to the vineyard and comes back into the soil and just continues to, instead of just trashing all of that, it comes back into the soil. So what we take from the land, we're giving back.
Yeah, have you found that that there's, let's say, a lot of this, ancestral and experiential knowledge that you have been able to apply to your work there?
Yeah, I mean, like balance is the first thing that comes to mind. It was taught to me at such an early age of finding your balance within yourself and your surroundings, and so that was something that was instilled in me just growing up, and I apply that in everything, not just in daily life, but out in the vineyard and in the winery. It's all about balance. Balancing the crop load, a balance in the complexity of the wine. And so yeah, balance is the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting project. I'm sure we could talk about this, and I'd love to talk about it and come down and check it out at some point. But we do have other things we need to get. So let me ask you, let's table that for a later date. So Mireia, you worked at, and you were actually did you help start up, or you were in the early people at Castel d'Ancus? And again, please correct my pronunciation here.
That's totally good. Castel d'Ancus. Yeah. So what happened is Tara and I went to visit Castel d'Ancus. I think it was in 2007, and they were just like finishing. Well, they just had finished planting the vineyards a couple of years ago. They were finishing the building, the winery, and we were talking with the owner. And I love the place. Tara loved the place. It was pretty close, or the closer winery to my house, to my home over there in Spain, which was still an hour away, but
right. Well, the wineries in the Spanish side of the Pyrenees.
Yes.
Yeah.
But still, like, there's not that many wineries there, or there's a little bit more now. But from my house, it was the closer winery, so it was like really interesting for me, and trying to get there. So I finally got a position for harvest, and it was just supposed to be a harvest position. Because I had just graduated, coming back from United States. And what happened is that the winemaker that they had, he had like some personal problems, and he left a week before harvest. So the owner was like, well, I can either find someone with a lot of experience and just bring him here, or if you want, you can take the position and see how it works. And obviously I was like, yeah, I'm all in. Like, you're giving me a winemaker position just like for a winery that's just starting, it's the first harvest. Yeah. So it was just like, yeah, crazy vintage, a lot of work, lot of crying, lot of laughing, lot of sweat,
a
and
lot
tears
of blood, sweat, and tears, for sure.
Yeah, as we say, trial by fire.
I always say that I was like really fortunate first that Raul, who is the owner and winemaker there, gave me the position, because he came from Torres Winery, so he could basically get whoever he wanted, because he was like for a lot of years in the wine industry, and he knew a lot of people. But also, like, I think after the first harvest that he decided to keep me on board, that was like amazing, because I was like literally just coming out of college, so I didn't have like experience in terms of like running myself the winery. So he was like, had to be like really on top of me, and teaching me a lot, because yeah, you know the books, but it's totally different when they handle you a winery.
But not only that, it was all new equipment as well.
Everything
And
was
so
new.
like having to learn the new equipment on the fly like that was
yeah, it was like
kind of insane.
Everything new. I actually purchased the equipment for the winery was almost all purchased when I got there, because it was like a month before harvest. But I actually purchased like all the lab equipment and everything myself. So it was like pretty interesting to be able to set up everything. It was a great experience there. And I was there for 7 years. So
yeah. Well, but when you went there, you went together. You already knew each other.
We knew each other, but she got the job. She got the position first, and of course she needed help. So she asked me if I wanted to help her with this new project. And yeah, I didn't think twice about it. We've already visited that winery, so I saw it like back in 2007. So I was like, heck yeah, I want to go. I want to learn too. So yeah, I spent 2 harvests with her working there.
And so Mireia, you were the boss. It sounds like you were running the show.
I was the boss, but it was like more like a team of 2. I mean, I was like,
the team of you 2.
Yeah, basically. Okay. And then we had like the vineyard workers for picking and everything, because everything was in house. It has state winery with 23 acres. So everything was in house, but yeah, it was like basically us two there at the winery that first harvest.
Yeah, it was
Very
very,
fun.
very labor intensive.
Really labor intensive.
Extremely. I mean, we show up at 7 a.m. and sometimes we work till like 2 a.m. And so it was quite an experience for sure. But what's so unique about that place is that not only is it like high elevation, but also too, they used stone vats that dated back to the 12th century. So that's what we would actually do our fermentations in, out in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of, in the middle of these rocks, these stone vats that the monks used back in the 12th century.
And that's where we actually learned a lot about natural yeast and minimal intervention and everything, because we were like literally doing everything there in the forest. So it was all with natural yeast. We would do these little starters in the vineyard and then taking it there. So, and that's what we apply now to our wines at Camins to Dream. So it was really helpful to have that experience.
Oh, great. We are going to need to take a quick break right now. So just give us a minute and we will be right back. Okay, so we are back in studio. This is Pamela Bush. The show's Queerly Drinking, and Miria Taribó and Tara Gomez of Camins to Dreams are in the studio. Well, not in the studio, they're on Zoom. I'm in the studio, but we're having a conversation together here. And we were just discussing a little bit about their backgrounds, some of what they've been doing before starting their winery, and also are still doing. And Mireia, you're from Spanish, from Catalonia, and I think that Catalonia is one of my favorite places in the world, and Barcelona is, I'd say, outside of the United States, outside of my New York, San Francisco, and New Orleans being my favorite U.S. cities, Barcelona is like definitely one of the next ones. It's great. And I've been going to Barcelona since literally 1988.
Wow.
I have seen how it's changed. But there's just like the culture in Catalonia is just, it's special, and it's such a great area, and the Pyrenees especially. Like a few years ago, I was traveling with some friends and the chef in the restaurant that I had, and we went over this to the French side of the Pyrenees, but at some point we didn't even know what country we were in. I mean, it's just so beautiful. It's incredibly beautiful over there. And I know both of you were working together there. So then you came back here to the United States after doing that, and you were working at Keto, and so what is it though that made you decide to start something together? Because working to being a couple and then also working together, it could be a beautiful experience, and it could go in the other direction too. So yeah.
Well, so far it's been a beautiful experience.
That I'm glad to hear.
With our fingers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I think we always wanted to have our own label. We like to do things a certain way, and we don't like people to tell us what to do, which working together, that sometimes can be an issue too. Mm-hmm. But I think because we are really different, and we both know really our strengths and our weaknesses and everything, we balance our work really good. I think if we would be both like really strong on the lab or really strong on the cellar, or like wanting to do the same things, it would be more difficult. But because we are a little bit more different, and we balance each other really good, it's been great. And
so as Mireia said, that she doesn't do good in the lab, and she literally breaks everything when she steps in there. So that's where I come into play with the science part of it. I love science, so I'm the lab person running all the analysis in this, and she does really good in the cellar. So we recognize it, and we accept it, and that's just how it is. And I mean, there's no bosses, one bossing the other around. It's nothing like that at all. We just know what the jobs that need to get done, and we do it.
Yeah. So when you say like you're kind of like running the analysis and doing things in the labs, if if you could, and both of you, just talk about the process of what you're doing, how you're making your wine. Let's say starting the vineyard. So I know you're sourcing from vineyards in Santa Ynez, I believe.
So yeah, well, it's Santa Barbara County, but our vineyards for Camins to Dreams are
Yeah.
mostly in Santa Rita Hills, which is
Okay.
the western side.
And you're doing mostly Pinot, right?
No.
Oh, okay, well, I'll never, I guess wrong.
So Pinot and Chardonnay are what we kind of veered away from because we, starting a new brand, we wanted to be different in our own way because we love cool climate Syrahs, we love Gruner Veltliner. So we decided that those are the two varieties we wanted to focus on here in Santa Rita Hills because it's not really well recognized. I mean, Pinot and Chardonnay are the first two varieties that come to mind because those are the predominant varieties grown and planted here in Santa Rita Hills.
Yeah, and Santa Rita Hills has become really well known for like having distinct Pinot, but yeah.
But we decided to go
opposite
other direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gruner and different vineyard designated Syrahs. And we source from different vineyards that kind of like align on the same philosophy that we have for winemaking. So we want to source from vineyards that are either organic or biodynamic, or we know that they are sustainable, SIP certified or not, but that they really respect the land and also the workers, and that we know that they are doing a good job. So that's the first thing that we do, is source for these vineyards that we're interested on. And then when harvest comes, we are always going to the vineyard. I mean, we go to the vineyard during all the process, obviously, to check for the grapes and everything. But when harvest comes, we go to every single peak there, and we are hand to hand with all the other workers. We are in the back of the tractor, always like making like a first source of the grapes and like a quality control there. And then, yeah, we take the grapes to the vineyard. Everything gets fermented in really small lots. We separate everything until bottling, so we can really control everything, separate and see how the clones change, how the vineyards are different.
Yeah, every single lot is treated. I mean, for the vineyard is separated out. We keep everything separate because we vineyard designated. But yeah, we do everything. Like, we're so hands-on. We go out there for every single pick in the middle of the night, whatever time that is. We haul our own fruit back to the winery. We process it, and yeah, it's literally just Mireia and I. And if my parents are in town or my family is in town, that they'll come and help out as well. But it's literally just Mireia and I.
Wow. So you do all the picking yourselves, or do you have people help with
No,
that?
so we have so there's the vineyard management team that has their crew out there picking. What we are is that we're on back of the tractors doing the quality control as they're dumping the grapes into the bins. We're sorting, we're doing that first sort, which happens to be out in the vineyard.
So basically pulling out the leaves or like any green part that can fall there, or like if there's a cluster that doesn't look perfect, we take it off, or just tasting the grapes, deciding if you want to pick more or less sometimes, because you do your analysis and go check the vineyard and everything and decide when to pick. But sometimes you get to the vineyard and you're picking and you start seeing like all the grapes and you are like, oh, this is riper, let's pick more, or this seems greener than what I thought, let's stop the pick and come back in 2 days. So that's really important for us, being so small, to be able to take that decisions on the spot there while we're picking. So
yeah. And how many cases are you doing right now?
So our average in the last, so we started in 2017. In average, we've been doing like 450 cases, more or less. This year, we're gonna double or even a little bit more production. So growing slowly, we were lucky that this year we got some distribution, so that allow us to grow a little bit this year. So yeah, but
and
still really
that,
small.
we cut back last year, so we're making up for last year as well. I mean, it was such a crazy year last year that we just didn't really want to deal with any of that. So we cut a lot of our contracts and really just brought in a little bit because we didn't know what was, I mean, nobody knew what was happening. And so, and what was going to become of it, if we were going to open back up again or not. So we just cut production. So literally we're just making up for last year.
And a little bit more.
Plus a little bit more.
Yeah. So just kind of getting back to when you bring to the production side, are you doing all native fermentations?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we go and sample the vineyards during the growing season, you take the grapes to the winery and crush them to make your analysis and taste the juice and everything. So all the grapes, the juice that we collect during sampling time, we kind of like start multiplying it and start making like a starter yeast from each vineyard. And that's when we get the grapes already the day of picking. We have like already a starter that we can inoculate, which is natural yeast, but that's the way we do it. So
you always do a little bit of inoculation with the starter yeast.
With not with yeast, commercial yeast, but with
Right.
the yeast that
Yeast
already
from your
comes
vineyard. Right.
from the vineyard.
Mhm.
And we do that to start fermentations a little bit faster, because that way we minimize oxidation and minimize problems with
VA.
volatile acidity, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's been really helpful doing it like that because we don't add any SO2 either. So we want our wine to be really
Well,
clean, and
We add SO2 at bottle.
bottling, but not during all the process. So we want to have control over the fermentation when it starts.
Right. And about like how much SO2 do you add?
At bottling, like around 20 to 25 ppm, just to protect it a little bit.
Which is really nothing.
Yeah, it's just protect it a little bit, because when we press and everything, and it still has CO2, so that's protected. But then we keep our wines all in barrel, neutral barrels, but even the white, everything is in barrel. And we really try to keep it like in a really, reductive environment, like with the leaves and everything. And so when you rack it out to bottling, you get like that oxidation that the wine is not used to. So we kind of like try to protect it a little bit at that point. But that's it. It's just right before bottling. And
the first and only time it sees SO2, so I'm sure it eats it all up.
Yeah. And you said 2017 was your first vintage, right?
2017, yes. Correct.
So when you go back and taste those wines now, how are they holding up?
Oh, it's great. I mean, we only made one wine that year. It was 2.5 barrels of Syrah. But yeah, it's tasting really good now.
I think what's so unique too about this area is that we're able to retain the low pHs, but also to retain the higher acidity levels naturally. I think that a lot of that is the soil profiles. We have some diatomaceous earth here in Senorita Hills, which is also unique for soil profile, and
then also the cool climate that we have. It never gets really warm, so the sun doesn't really burn off that acids. So that's why we retain it, and that's the main reason why mostly all our wines are from here, from Santa Rita Hills, because it's a natural preservant for our wines.
Yeah. Well, so Tara, question for you is, how is what you're doing, with Camins to Dreams, how is that different from the work at Kita?
Well, Kita is a little bit more of a classic approach. I mean, like, I'm using commercial yeast there, not using natural yeast. I mean, when I first started this project for Kita, I was literally under a lot of pressure in terms of like, producing really good quality, solid wines. And I didn't want to take that approach with going natural with Kita, just because of that. I mean, it was going to determine whether this project was going to continue or not. So I wanted to make sure that everything finished 100%, everything was solid, and so it was, and that's how this project launched and got started. Was after my 2010 harvest, and just coming out of the gates with that 2010 vintage. I mean, I got a lot of nice accolades off of that, and so that helped tremendously with a decision to move forward with this project from the rest of the tribe. So yeah, that's the difference, is using commercial yeast versus natural yeast for Camins and Dreams, and we get to experiment a lot more with our own project. And so
also the vineyards, like Kita sources everything from Camphor Vineyard,
yes,
which is
as well
their state vineyard, while we get to source fruit from different vineyards. But yeah, the style of wine, it's actually pretty similar. We both make wines that are really food friendly and that are like more like on the lighter side, if you want to say, for California wines,
Mhm.
and high acidity and lower alcohol. So we like the wines that uh, are like that. So that's why in both labels, we make the same style of wines, but obviously like a little bit different.
Right. Have you thought about seeing if Keto would be interested in going with natural fermentations?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great idea to at least start
Right.
approach wise now. But yeah, I haven't done that yet. I mean, just everybody's used to the style that is being made now, and so I think it's more like baby steps
Yeah.
that I'll take with that.
Yeah. No, understandable. So, okay. So let's shift gears a little bit. And I know I once, actually the first wine business I had was a wine bar I opened up in 1994 called Hayes and Vine Wine Bar. And I opened it up. The person I opened it up with at the time was my partner. A few months after we opened it up, we split up. We stayed business partners for a few years, but you know, and that wasn't super surprising that happened anyway. But you know, working, like, how do you at a certain point, I think that when people, you know, work, when your life partner is also your business partner, it's sometimes hard to create that separation of, okay, we're not working anymore. But how do you create that balance in your relationship so that you're not working all the time?
It actually took and is still taking some time, because that's all we think about is work. I mean, that's all we do literally
Right.
all day, every day.
It's
But
also
it's your baby, you
it's
know.
but it's not only
Yeah.
work. It's like, if we're not talking about our wine specifically, or work specifically, we're talking about wine in general anyways, because it's also our passion and what we
Yeah.
do. We like to taste wines and talk about wine. So yeah, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to put that line there, but we try to, when we get home, like, yeah, maybe we have like a few things that we have to discuss, because during the day she's at Kita and I'm at Camins, so we haven't seen, and there's something that needs to be discussed. But then after that, it's like, okay, time out. Let's leave it for tomorrow. Not talk about work tonight, and just try to, play board games, or like go
Yeah,
with our bikes or something to disconnect and just
nighttime
do something
is
different.
more like our time together, where we really try and disconnect. We're early morning people, so we if we
So you didn't mind getting up early today?
Oh, no,
no,
not
no,
at
no,
all.
no, we're fine. We have a lot of our discussions early morning.
Mhm.
Sometimes it may be
Sometimes in the middle of the
in
night.
the middle of the night when I can't sleep, because I'm not the best sleeper. I have insomnia, so my mind is just constantly thinking.
And then she just talks in the middle of the night. She asks a question. And they're
Uh,
like, it's 4 a.m. Like, why are you asking questions?
yeah, I well, yeah, I mean, I can relate to some of that as well. And anyway, I have found stuff that is what has helped me the most with that, truthfully, is like cannabis.
Yeah.
I like specific cannabis that's like for sleep. I think, is I mean, if you get the wrong kind, you'll be up for 3 hours, for 3 hours a night. But yeah,
I'm playing around with that.
good to hear. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I mean, even if you work alone and you have a winery, or you have your own business, it's very hard to turn it off. And then when you have another person who is kind of in the same thing, it's like, I think you need to make a very distinct effort to like turn it off. I was like during COVID, I watched Schitt's Creek. Have you seen that?
Which
Schitt's Creek.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there's, I don't want to spoil because I don't know how far we're into it, but David and his boyfriend, who then becomes his husband, they have a business together. And I was kind of watching it the other day, and I was thinking to myself, like, they make it kind of seem easy of how you can at a certain point just like turn the business off and focus on other things, but that's often not the reality. So good for you for I guess trying to navigate that, and having a be your whole life. Do you get back to Spain?
Yeah, I mean, Mireya hasn't seen her family in over 2 years.
But that's because of COVID.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, before that we were going every year
Mhm.
for a couple of weeks to see my family. And actually we're gonna be leaving the first week of July. Spain just opened flights last week for
Wow.
United States people.
Yeah.
For flights from United States that are like touristic flights. And as soon as I saw that the flights were up, I was like, I'm gonna get a flight, because if we don't do it now, we're gonna get into harvest. So we're leaving for a week in first week of July to visit my family.
Wow.
Really
Cool.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah, that should be great. That should be really nice. So, what's been your, I guess, I don't want to say what's your experience, because that's a very broad question, but there are not, the industry we're in is still very heteronormative. It's very patriarchal, even though there are changes happening, and certainly within the natural wine movement, there, I think, is a greater acceptance of queer and I mean that in almost like a really broad context, not just terms of gender and sexuality, but thinking different, doing things differently. That said, I've noticed, myself, and it's been in the industry for 30 years, but I still feel like there is as much of like, there's still a lot of like heteronormative norms that play out in natural wine, where even if people want to think, oh, we're so renegade, we're so irreverent, a lot of this stuff, and I should call it heteropatriarchy, because to me it is very much linked. Has that been your experience? Have you found that too?
I think our experience, it's been good. We really like, I think Santa Barbara County, I would say like the wine industry depends a lot also. It's always like, yeah, it's still white, male dominated. We know that. And it's, as you said, it's like really, I don't know, it's just like back in the time sometimes, but, but it also depends a lot on the wine region you are. And I think Santa Barbara County, it's more like a newer region where it's more used to experimenting grapes, but also like be more open to everything. So we've been really welcoming that. I mean, for being like in the LGBTQ community, I don't think we had like any problem here in this region. Sometimes like at the beginning when we opened, people would just like drive by the winery and stop and come in, and I explained the story and they would be like kind of shocked. Oh, it's you and your wife? Yeah, you heard it right. A lot of people thought that I was saying it because I speak Spanish and my accent. Like, oh, your husband? No, my wife. But other than that, like, I think we've been like pretty welcome here in this area at least. Yeah, it's sometimes like people get surprised still. I don't know why, but yeah. That two women can have a winery and own it and be the winemakers, like.
Yeah.
And be LGBTQ plus also BIPOC.
Oh yeah,
so like, yeah.
You've got all the boxes checked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, and I'm wondering how much of the, like you were saying, people come to the winery, how much of the surprise element, but for like, again, going back to things that have happened years ago through my career, is that even if I were like doing I have had male employees, and there was often this assumption, oh, that's the person in charge. So, with you, it's like, where's the boss? I don't know, maybe not, but yeah.
And you're looking at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the winery is actually open then? You like, people can, do you have a tasting room down there?
Yeah, we do have a tasting room in Lompoc. Now we're open by appointment only because of, like COVID
Right.
and everything, opening, closing. It really helped being just by appointment, and we're getting close to get to harvest. So for now, we're going to keep it like that. It helps a lot knowing when people is going to show up at your door. But yeah, tastings are going, and it's been pretty good.
Yeah, and this week, we were able to open up now to 50% indoor capacity. So, and then I guess by next week it's gonna be fully open.
That's what we heard. So
supposedly. So yeah, just trying to navigate through that.
Do you sell most of your wine at a tasting room, or do you distribute as well?
We do both.
we do have distribution through California with Amy Atwood Selections,
Oh, cool.
which is a small,
Yeah, sure.
small
Anyway, maybe. Yeah.
distribution, minimal intervention wines.
Mhm.
And then we have a little bit of distribution in New York and New Jersey. And
Who,
then,
who sells the wine there?
so New York and New Jersey is Wine for the World.
Okay.
We have Minnesota with Burgett Imports, and then
Which we just landed.
yes. And then in Washington State with Bianco Rosso Imports.
Mhm. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So we need to go to another break. Just give us a minute. We'll be back, and I want to talk a little bit more about using your voice as people who are LGBTQ and BIPOC, and how you can use your voice and what you're doing for the community when we get back. And we are back. This is Pamela Bush. The show is Queerly Drinking, and you're listening to KXSF LP in San Francisco. And my guest today, our theme, as it is Pride Month, is we're having two couples who make wine together. And right now we are talking to Miria Taribó and Tara Gomez from Camins to Dream. And before the break, I warned them that we were going to be discussing how they can use their voices and their platforms to I guess amplify the voices of LGBTQ and BIPOC winemakers and wine professionals, and I guess showing representation that it's sort of like we're here, we're queer, we're everywhere, and get used to it. But as we said earlier, it is an industry that, while not everyone who makes wine is white, not everyone who makes wine is male, and not everyone who makes wine is heterosexual, that's still the vast majority of people who are making wine, even though that's starting to change a little bit. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that a little bit more, and how you feel that, if there's anything that you're doing outside of making wine, or if you feel that just making like beautiful wines is enough of a way to make a statement.
Right. So for me personally, I didn't have like a mentor when I was first entered into the industry. I kind of like had to learn everything on my own and do it all on my own. So I always wanted to be a mentor for somebody else. And just this year, I really decided that this was what I wanted to do. And even though my my life is so busy, I just wanted to be a support group for others. And so I joined the Speed Rack Advisory Squad. I'm a mentor for that.
And what is that? The Speed Rack Advisory Squad?
So it's just a mentorship program. So it's with a lot of people, including BIPOC community, and it's all the way around the world. So there's that program that I'm helping out with, and then also to the Legacy Network through the James Beard Foundation. They reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to get involved and be a part of their first mentorship program. So that's going to be kicking off here shortly. But yes, I really wanted to help out the community of people, like me in the BIPOC community, LGBTQ, all of that, and Mireia as well.
Yeah, I think if you put yourself out in the community to be able to reach to you, and like, for example, like just like participating in different, like, I'm also part of the board of directors for the Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance, and I think it's just like putting yourself outside, and people like, oh, there's someone that it's different, there's someone that it's not just like what the norm is, and that helps normalize the situation, helps normalize that not everybody is, like, as you said, white and male, and there's a lot more colors in in the rainbow, obviously. So yeah, it's just like trying to put ourselves there, and trying to say that, hey, we're here. If you need to reach out to someone that you want to talk to, we're here to support and to help, giving like a platform for other communities, for other groups, that people that haven't been like in feel like inclusive in other. So
And then also too, we're also part of the Hughes Society as well. And so, so yeah, we have we're starting to build our community. You know, I'm learning that there's more, you know, people similar to me and more indigenous out there as well. And I'm meeting them along the way, and it's been a wonderful journey for us. To be able to have this opportunity, to be able to connect with a lot of people.
I think if something it's been good from COVID is the fact that social media and virtual tastings and virtual events, and it's grown a lot the community, and it's been able for us and for other people to reach out to people that you didn't even know they were there before, because all you see before it was the same. So it's been great that, and we're trying to really support all that groups. So
Yeah. Do you think that the, you know, over the events of, let's say, the last year and a half, it just, yeah, I mean, you know, the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd brought a lot of things just to a head. But even before that, you know, there's, I think, been a growing awareness, at least within the community, you know, the different communities, you know, of police violence, of, you know, violence toward, like, you know, trans people, especially Black trans women. And you know, then there was, you know, Me Too as well. And do you think that, have you found that your customers or people that you encounter are becoming much more, not just more aware of, like, these social justice issues, but are also taking them into account when they're choosing their, like, who they're going to do business with? And do you do that?
We do have a lot of people that we always like to know, you know, like how did you learn about us? How did you hear about us? Why are you here in our winery? I mean, it's like, we are not like in a area that people just walks by. We're like, people really needs to come to us because they want to know that we are there. If not, nobody knows that.
We're kind of like
there.
off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So we're not where all the tasting rooms are located.
So a lot of the answers are that. Yeah, I was researching, you know, I'm trying to be more conscious on the wines that I'm purchasing, or who I want to support. And I search for woman winemakers, or I search for BIPOC wines, or I search for, like, you know,
women-owned
wineries, or like even like small wineries. And so people is like really trying to, and not everybody obviously, but we have
the majority.
A lot of our customers that come to us is because they've done the research, and they're trying to switch a little bit the way that they used to purchase wines, and trying to support more like small communities and small businesses, and just not always the same. So that's really good to hear too.
And we do that as well.
Yeah, of course.
We've always done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really about supporting each other, and being a support group for each other. So
yeah. Well, okay, so what would you say, because we just have a couple of minutes left, if somebody wanted to, let's say, start a winery with their partner, you know, regardless of gender, sexual preferences, start up a winery or any wine business with their partner, what advice would you give?
Just try your hardest. I mean,
believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself.
Most importantly.
Yeah. And be patient. Because, like, really, when you are like working with your partner, you need to be patient for that fact. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I think if you really know, I would say, like, start like being sure that you have the same goals, that you want to go to the same direction. That's really important to start a business together. And once you have all that said, just like, you know, try to push hard for it, and work as much as you can to get to your goals. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have both of you on the show today. I know Tara, was great that you were able to join us at Wine Fair, and yeah, I hope, you know, that the recordings for that, it's taken a little bit longer because it's a little bit more involved than I thought it would be, but the recordings will be out next week, and so you'll have a chance to see that and show it with people. But I think the virtual format is something that will keep in the future. Nothing's like a live event. So the idea is hopefully in 2022 we'll be we'll do that live. But maybe have a little bit of a virtual event, because as you said, one of the nice things about Zoom and having virtual meetings and conferences with people is that it does give you an opportunity to meet people you haven't necessarily met before, and create community. So I think it's definitely, it's a good tool to kind of achieve what we're trying to do. So
No, absolutely. I mean, also too, if you like, a lot of people have busy schedules as well, and can't always get to all the events, and so sometimes they have to like bail out of it. But with Zoom, it just makes it so much easier.
Well, again, in 2022,
yes.
we're and hopefully, knocking on wood, it'll be live, and I'm looking to have both of you there. Hopefully, I would love for
we would love to participate.
to be there, and have a wonderful time in Spain. I am very jealous of you, but yeah, no, have a great time, and I when you get back, you're going to be, I'm sure harvest is going to be just on the precipice of starting,
right around the corner.
Yeah,
I can't believe it. This whole year has just gone by so fast.
I know, this year's halfway over.
I know.
Anyway, well, again, thank you so much, and I'll be in touch with you soon about a variety of things too. But it's been great having you on the show. Happy Pride.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us on this morning.
Okay, thanks. Yep.
Bye.
Okay, and for everyone else who is who's listening, in a few minutes we are going to go into part 2 of the program today, where we're going to have Corinne Rich and Katie Rouse from Birdhouse joining us.